For background, I'm a 24-year-old woman living in Australia and working at an establishment that caters to an adult audience. One night, as my shift is coming to a close, one of the patrons asks to buy me a drink, which I accept because of employer policy. I talk him up to a couple of expensive drinks for the two of us, have a quick conversation, and make my excuses about my shift being over, but he should come back to see me soon. I feel his gaze undressing me in his mind as he licks a splash of his drink from his upper lip. He stands up and, with this creepy grin, asks to walk me to my car. Now, I'm no idiot. I know never to put myself in that position and politely decline and tell him I might see him next time. I walk out past our biggest bouncer and the guy doesn't follow me. Great. Nothing extraordinary. Just standard par for the course of my profession. But sadly, this isn't where our story ends. Oh no, for this creep, it's only just beginning. I'm off for a week after that night, but when I come back into work, I'm told the patron has been coming in every night for the last week asking for me. Says he wants to buy me another drink. Naively, I think, oh great, a bigger pay this week, and get set for my shift. The night rolls on, and who should roll in but our man of the hour, and he asks for me, right? So I saunter over and he buys me a drink. The whole time I'm sitting there with him, he just has this creepy grin on his face. Not like a sexual undressing creep grin, that's just normal. No, this was the kind of grin where he knows something you don't and is very pleased with himself about that fact. So we were talking, and I'm getting him to order himself drinks and trying to upsell him where I can. About half an hour goes by, and I make my excuses to leave so I can try to spread the tips around. But this guy isn't having it. He won't let me leave, and the more I insist, the angrier he gets. He's practically hissy at me by the time I give a look to one of the bouncers, who promptly comes over and diffuses the situation, giving me an opportunity to walk away. Phew, crisis averted. Wrong, because the bouncer doesn't throw him out. Just gives me a buffer, so this guy starts following me around the place, even attempting to walk into an employee-only area, which is where another bouncer finally notices and kicks him out. I finish my shift and walk over to my car. There he is. I shit you not, sitting on the bonnet of my car. How he knew it was my car, I will never know. He wants me to give him a ride and tells me how sexy I look. He's spewing greasy, slimeball creep lines at this point, and I'm not interested. I try to give him a hint nicely and decline to give him a ride, but again, he just turns mean and grabs me by my arm, insisting I give him a ride. I tell him to screw off and jam my key into his shoulder as hard as I can. He lets go and I push him with all my might so he falls down. I jump in my car, lock the door, and shove the key in the ignition. He's back up and banging on the window angrily to let him in, and I mean hard. So hard that I think his hands or my window might break. I got on the accelerator and I'm out of there. When I get 5 minutes down the road and I'm sure I'm not being followed, I pull over to the side of the road and call back to work. I tell them what's happened and alert that the other girls need to be careful leaving tonight. As I hang up the phone, I break into tears. Now, this isn't my first rodeo. I've been grabbed before, and the sad truth is, it will probably happen again. But you never get used to it, you know? I eventually compose myself, pull back onto the road, and head home. I cry myself to sleep. The next morning, word has gotten around, and the owner calls me to make sure I'm okay. I assure him I am, but he insists I take some time off in case this creep comes back. He wants to put some distance between us. Makes sense. A week goes by, then two. He's coming in every night asking about me and being told I quit and don't work there anymore. I lie to get him to stop coming in, but he just keeps coming in and asking, clearly not buying it. Then suddenly, 2.5 weeks in, he stops. Great. I'm really needing money at this point, so I'm happy to be able to go back to work the following week. Time goes on and everything seems to go back to normal. Same old chancers, but the good kind that lead to higher paychecks. If the abusive guy doesn't come back in, I'm happy. I started being forgetful though. I think I leave a door closed when I leave the house, but it's open when I get back. Lights on or off, food left out, Things end up in different places than I remember putting them sometimes, moments before. I'm losing it, but it's probably just the stress of everything that's gone down. One of my close friends who works with me reassures me that it's normal after being grabbed like that, and it will pass. This keeps up for a month, until one day I head out to work, get 15 minutes down the road, and realize I forgot some clothes that I'll need that night at work. I head back home, only to find the lights in my room on and the TV visible as on from the outside. I'm really losing it. Good thing I came back, I guess. I head inside, grab my stuff, and make sure to turn the TV off and the light out, and head to the door. Suddenly, I freeze. There, standing blocking the door, is the creep that grabbed me. I'm stunned, jaw dropped on the floor. And after what seems like a lifetime of standing in silence, staring at each other, him smiling that fucking smile, I scream. What? I'm screaming for him to get out and ask him what he's doing here. How he knows where I live, all in one jumbled mouthful of confusion. He just stands there with that smile on his face while I'm loudly freaking out, but stupidly not moving. I start gasping for air in a mixture of panic attack and bewilderment. Then he decides to speak in my wake. The words ooze out of him and leave me chilled. "Welcome home, honey. You're back early." A switch goes off in my head. I throw everything I have on me at him and sprint to the back door. I'm out. I leg it faster than I ever have in my life, screaming bloody murder as I go. No one helps. Stupid, apathetic society. I hide in some bushes around the corner, tears running down my face, gasping for air. I check my pocket and my keys are still there, but no phone. Know I threw that at the stalker creep along with everything else. I sneak back to my house, jump in my car, and nope the F out. I head to work, tell them what's happened, and call the cops. The cops head to my house and send others to my work. The stalker guy is gone when they turn up. They search the house, and it turns out he's been living in my crawl space. I'm paranoid that's what all those doors and lights and misplaced things were about. I pack up whatever I can fit in my car while cops are still there. That they'll let me take, and I drive. I haven't been back since. I moved states, knew everything. My boyfriend, who I live with, works as a teacher in a town about 15 minutes away by train. He gets home more or less at the same time every day, give or take an hour or so. I, on the other hand, work from home. In late January of this year, we got into a pretty big fight about something stupid. I can't even remember what it was about now, but it was one of those fights where we didn't speak to each other, text, call, or anything the whole next day. So this afternoon, I was lying in bed getting work done. It was a Tuesday, and I was pretty sure his last class finished at 1 p.m. on Tuesdays, meaning he'd surely be home at 2:30. But around 1 p.m., I heard the front door open and shut. I thought, I guess he's home an hour early today. It was normal for him to skip his last class every once in a while, so I didn't really think anything of it. In fact, I was mostly mentally preparing for the awkward post-fight, "Hey, how's it going?" conversation. So I continued to lie in bed and do my work and wait for him to come in and change his clothes. The bedroom door was closed and I had earplugs sort of half in, as I usually do when I'm working, but I could hear the heavy footsteps of him walking around the apartment, as he always does. If we hadn't been mid-fight and I wasn't so preoccupied with the awkwardness of it all, I might have noticed it was strange how slow the footsteps were, or how long he spent walking around the living room. But I was caught up in the dramatics of the fight and I didn't think about it. I was just lying there, waiting and waiting for him to finally come in. Finally, the bedroom door slowly opened just a few inches. I turned my head towards the door and prepared to give him a sort of awkward, "We've been fighting for 24 hours, smile. But the door didn't move more than a few inches. I looked and saw that it was a woman's hand with red nail polish on the doorknob. Whoever was there slowly closed the door just as they had opened it, without entering the room. I jumped out of bed, ripped out my earplugs, and sort of froze there for a few seconds while thinking rapidly. My first thought, that was not my boyfriend. Then I thought, could that have been his mom? His sister? The landlady? For some reason, I concluded that surely it was his mom or sister, so I opened the bedroom door and walked into the living room. There wasn't anyone there, but the room smelled heavily of women's perfume. Then I came to my senses and realized His mom and sister don't have keys and have never come over before. The landlady has never entered without permission. This was a stranger. I ran back into the bedroom and shut the door, now shaking heavily. There was a balcony connected to the bedroom, so despite the cold January rain, I stood on the balcony and called my boyfriend. He picked up and I asked him if his mom or sister might have come over unannounced. He told me, "No, don't move, I'm calling the police." The police were there in minutes and searched the whole apartment. Of course, nobody was there by this point. It was weird though. Nothing was missing from the apartment, despite us keeping a jar full of money right in the entrance. Nothing was even touched. In fact, it seemed like the intruder came straight to the bedroom, saw my legs in the bed, panicked and left. Plus, you can't open that big wooden front door without a key. For a few days, my boyfriend and I were convinced it was just the landlady being nosy. I began to feel better. Nevertheless, we demanded that the landlady change our locks. When she came to change them with her husband, she made a discovery. There was a square area by the keyhole that had been scratched away with something. The landlady said surely someone used the tools to break into the apartment. Then, a day or two later, my boyfriend told me, "I have to tell you something, but don't freak out." He told me that the orange kitchen scissors were missing. I obviously freaked out. I tore the apartment looking for those scissors. It's been 6 months and those scissors are gone. So the whole thing is just creepy and weird. A stranger breaks into a nice apartment but doesn't touch or take anything valuable. Not even the money jar sitting right in the entrance. Takes scissors from the kitchen, goes straight to the bedroom, sees someone in bed, and immediately leaves. This happened back while I was in college a couple of years ago. I and my roommate moved into a beautiful apartment our junior year of college. Our parents made it extremely clear that two small females living alone together was not ideal for some of the cheaper, shady neighborhoods close to our college. We attended a college in our state capital, so we were in a city environment and had certain criteria we had to meet in order for us to live there and for them to co-sign our lease. Lit sidewalks, keyed entry into the apartment building, lit parking lot, X amount of blocks from campus, etc. So we finally found one that fit our parents' criteria. Our apartment building had a keyed entry for both the front of the building and the back gate that led to the fire escape. Our apartment was an end unit that led to the fire escape, so there were 2 deadbolt locks on it. We loved our apartment. We felt safe, we had fun, truly living the college experience. And then my roommate's boyfriend starts slowly moving his things into the apartment. He's staying there way more often than he should. Finally tell my roommate if he wants to stay there and use the water, electric and food that I help pay for, then he needs to pay for it too, including our rent. I tell her a 3-way split, or I'm paying only my rent and he can pay the entire electric, water, and trash bill. I think I'm being pretty fair, and even though her boyfriend doesn't have a job, that's not my problem. I work and go to college. Your "I don't want to work at McDonald's," yes, he actually said that excuse is completely garbage. You want a place to stay, then to the Golden Arches you shall go. So instead, my roommate starts sneaking him in really late at night after I go to sleep, and he leaves on days I'm home. While I'm in class, he's there, then leaves before I come back. My schedule is extremely routine. Well, he can't have a key, so if my roommate is in class or at work, how is he getting in? He can't take my roommate's key because if he decides to leave halfway through the day, how will she get her key back? All good questions. The solution they come up with is to leave the back door unlocked that leads to the fire escape, and then he can just jump the fence at the bottom of the fire escape to get back on the fire escape when he's ready to come back. Or stick a rock in between the door. Whatever works for him. So I'm off of work and school one Thursday morning, and I decide I'm going to sleep in as long as I possibly can. My roommate and her boyfriend have already left for the day, so naturally they leave the door unlocked. I'm asleep like a pretty princess. It's about 10 in the morning when I hear the back door open to the apartment. I come to just enough to recognize the noise, realize it's my roommate or her boyfriend, and I brush it off and try to drift back off. All of a sudden, I start hearing someone creep through the apartment. Wooden floors. It definitely doesn't sound like casual walking. It is clearly someone stepping slowly and quietly through the apartment. My door to my room is ajar, just a sliver, but I don't see anything out the door, and I'm honestly too tired to go get up and look. A couple of minutes pass, and I figure that my roommate and her boyfriend are just being weirdos, and I fall back asleep. I can't be sure how much time passes before I open my eyes, but it can't be too long. I wake up to my door opening. My back is to the door, and I am facing the opposing wall. I slowly start to turn over to see why my roommate or her boyfriend would dare wake me from my slumber. And there he is, a burglar, in my room, next to the bed I'm currently lying in. A 6-foot-tall, 250-pound minimum burglar, unplugging my TV about 5 feet from where I currently am. I immediately pretended I was just shifting positions in my sleep and continued to roll over with my eyes as shut as I could make them seem, still open enough to watch what was going on. He hears me shuffling as I turn over, stops, looks dead at me, and luckily doesn't realize that my eyes are open just a tiny bit. He goes back to unplugging my TV and my DVD player, shoves them in a bag he's brought, like those bags from IKEA, and steals my change jar and casually starts walking out the front door to my apartment, like he came in for a cup of tea or something. After I hear the door shut, I immediately spring out of bed, grab my phone and start dialing 911, all while locking the back and front doors. The dispatcher is trying to calm me down. At this point, I am hysterical. I can't even catch my breath to tell her I'm okay. Luckily, I told her my address before I started hyperventilating. Pause. I will take a second to commend the police department, both city and college, because they were there in less than 3 minutes. Resume. She tells me the cops are there, but they need me to go downstairs to let them in the building, because they don't have the key to the front door of the building. I'm so afraid to open the door to my apartment and even look down the hallway. I'm about to walk to the front door and extend my arm out to the handle when I hear, "Ma'am, it's the police," as if I didn't get scared enough already. They yell through the door. I'm paranoid because the dispatcher just told me they couldn't get in and didn't realize someone probably let them in downstairs. I asked the dispatcher to confirm that the people at my door are actually police officers. She tells me that they are at my door. Okay, cool. I open the front door and I collapse right there. My legs completely turn into jello and I just hit the floor. I blacked out for a brief period of time, but they helped me up and sat me down on the couch. There are at least 10 officers in my apartment from both the city and college departments. When I look outside the living room window at the street below, there are 5 or 6 cop cars blocking the street. I later found out they were doing a perimeter search around the immediate area. I'm being bombarded with questions now. I have to find out what's missing, besides the stuff from my room. I'm crying and shaking. This is not at all how I saw my day off going. I tell them my roommate left the back door open for her boyfriend. They inspect the back door and blah blah. The next thing I know, my roommate and her boyfriend walk in, and they both have the most dumbfounded looks on both of their faces. At this point now, there is a detective talking to me and I'm giving my statement, giving a description of the burglar, the stuff missing, looking at mugshots, etc. I immediately stop talking to the detective, look at the both of them and blurt out, "Somebody robbed us while I was asleep. Came into my room." My roommate looks me dead in the face and says, "Oh my gosh, is any of my stuff gone?" That's really what you're asking me right now? If your replaceable shit is missing? 2 officers take her and her boyfriend aside and talk to them while I'm finishing up with the detective. I call my then boyfriend and he comes over to help me pack my stuff to stay over at his house for a couple of days, which turned into staying until my lease at my place ended, around 4 months. After failing to recognize any suspects in a lineup, the cops slowly start leaving. After they all leave, I call my parents to tell them what had happened, gather my things, and head over to my boyfriend's house. My roommate and her boyfriend never once apologized, not for leaving the door unlocked, but just a general "I'm sorry this happened to you" type of apology. They never asked me if I was okay or if I wanted to talk. Nothing. The day my lease ended was the best day of that entire year. I couldn't wait to get away from my roommate, her boyfriend, and that apartment. They never found the guy who robbed me that day. I didn't even care about the materialistic things. He robbed me of my safety and security, and it took a good amount of counseling to get that back. I'm also thankful he didn't try to attack me that morning. My friendship with my roommate was tarnished. I haven't spoken to her since. To this day, I don't sleep with my back to the door, and I always have a knife under my mattress.